Ole Miss just signed the most electric back you've never heard about. Let's get to know him.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss Podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. I'm your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special shout out to the insiders and everydayers who make this show what it is. On today's show, we're talking about Trey Hall, the explosive running back from Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College who just signed with the Ole Miss Rebels. Hall brings the potential to fill some of that home run hitting role that we've seen from Jerry Dingley and Ulysses Bentley in the past. With the recent Diego Pavia ruling, Hall comes in potentially with 4 years of eligibility, but also has the year of a post-grad year of seasoning. This is a win-win for Ole Miss and Trey Hall as the Rebels seem to add more firepower to the backfield. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. And don't forget to check out Chris Gordy at Locked On SEC or Corey Burton at Locked On Vandy for more perspectives on college football, the SEC, and yes, even Ole Miss. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So Ole Miss signed Trey Hall, a running back out of Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College, and he had his announcement over the weekend that he was going to Ole Miss, but rumor is he signed it with Ole Miss back in the early signing period, and they just kept it under wraps because they wanted to play the transfer portal market a little bit as well. It looks like Ole Miss is probably done in the transfer portal market. We'll see what happens. I was personally looking forward to see what would go on with Scotty Humphrey, but I like Trey Hall, and I think he is the most electric running back you have never heard about. This is a guy that is of slight stature. Okay, I'm going to do a lot of comparing to Dexter McCluster over the next few minutes. I'm not calling this running back Dexter McCluster, but whenever you have somebody that is 5'11", 185 pounds, running at 21 miles per hour and making people look as silly as he is at the Mississippi junior college level, you can see why I would make that comparison a little bit. But the small of stature thing is probably what people need to realize when I make the Dexter McCluster comparisons. He is a good little running back. He signed over December, had his welcome to Ole Miss moment, his signing ceremony, and it was covered by the Vicksburg Post. He's from Warren Central High School, but former Warren Central star Trey Hall announced that he is signed to play at Ole Miss. He is really excited. You know, part of what he had going for him is the interview in this Vicksburg Post article where he says, hey, I came up in the mud. I fought for everything I had. Ole Miss could have basically 7 or 8 running backs up there, and I will fight for everything because that's how I am built, and that is what I have done. And his attitude over this whole thing is pretty spectacular. And if you look at him and what's going on, rumor is that he didn't take up that many NIL dollars, and he's kind of betting on himself at the Power 5 level. And with the new rule from Diego Pavia in junior college football, meaning he could have 4 years of eligibility, once he gets to Ole Miss, this is a no-brainer. If it goes back to the way it was, he has 2 years of eligibility, but Trey Hall is exactly what you need. And Lane Kiffin has made a habit out of finding NFL prospects out of weird spots. If you want to think about when Lane Kiffin first got to Ole Miss, he signed Dean Leonard and Tavius Robinson out of a university somewhere in Canada. Both of those guys are in the NFL right now. He knows how to find talent. If you are good, if you are above the line of good that he has, he will sign you. He will use you and give you an opportunity to develop into that next level type player. Again, he's a 4-star player according to ESPN, the number 10 player in the entire country. He's only rated as a junior college player on the ESPN ranking, by the way. He's from Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College down in Perkins, Mississippi. He was all MACCC South, second team this season as well. And I've also seen him called an All-American, so apparently his year is enough to where people have paid attention. He had nearly 900 yards rushing this season, and he ran for about 7.2 yards per carry. He hit 21 miles per hour as well. So let's look at the highlights on this football player. He is a really explosive back, and he is constantly beating people to the next level on offense. You think you have an angle on him. You think you can catch him, and he runs right by you. That's the first thing you notice whenever you talk about the 21 miles per hour. I bet this guy is a 4.3, low 4.4 type running back. He is just small in stature. That kind of kept him back coming out of Warren Central and his year in junior college and everything. All of a sudden, Western Kentucky, who he committed to in December before he got the Ole Miss offer, and he immediately decommitted and signed at that moment. Now, one thing that was interesting, he had a run against Southwest Community College where it seemed like he broke about 7 tackles. And what you will notice in his video is contact balance that is off the charts. He does not go down upon first contact. He is difficult to get tackled to the ground. And if he gets into the open field past the second or third level of the defense, you are not going to catch him. He is an absolutely electric running back. He is somebody that would be worth the price of a ticket going in to see him play football at Ole Miss. He honestly would. He is excellent out of the backfield, catching the ball as well. And he's just a good player. That was a game at Colin, by the way. That was my district in high school. And, of course, whenever he shows him against Northwestern, you can see the contact balance against Northwest Mississippi. You can see the way he used, and you can see also that they put their end zone camera apparently behind a magnolia tree. But whatever, we're okay with that for Trey Hall and the video coming on. But contact balance, explosivity, electricity. These are all things that Trey Hall brings to the situation at Ole Miss. Now, if you want to look at the running back room at Ole Miss right now, the way you want to see exactly what it looks like, is it a home run that Trey Hall plays next year? No, it's probably not, other than situational. This is my guess for kickoff return next season, by the way. But when you look at Logan Diggs, who flashed plenty in the Gator Bowl. When you look at Kewan Lacey, who's coming over from Missouri, the staff absolutely loves him. When you look at Shakai Mills-Knight, who had a great Navy All-American game, especially in things like pass protection, and his 220 pounds, you can see exactly how this is being set up. Jordan Simmons from Akron, we're going to talk about him a little bit in the next segment, brought in. You have Trey Hall. You have Dominic Thomas, who was probably the third string running back this season, who is positioned to be the sixth string running back next season. You can see how it's going to be a hard road to hoe for Trey Hall or any running back to win this job. Lane Kiffin decided he was going to do this with numbers. He was going to attack this to where one of these guys are likely going to hit. Ole Miss missed out on Justice Haynes. Ole Miss thought they had Justice Haynes, if we're going to be real about it. Justice Haynes ended up in Michigan as well. Ole Miss thought they had Mekhi Hughes. Mekhi Hughes ended up at Oregon. Ole Miss already had Trey Hall. Remember, he signed back in December. He is somebody that was just being kept on the down low until everything got settled so that other running backs didn't get scared off by this electric running back. He is a really, really good player, and I'm excited to see exactly how this is going to look for Ole Miss this season. You know, Ole Miss wasn't done yet with the transfer portal buzzing. The Rebels locked up multiple commitments just as school is about to start at Ole Miss next week. Who are the newest additions? We break it all down next. You know, this message is from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Are you tired of the endless waiting and wondering and worrying about your taxes? Well, now that's a thing of the past. You see, taxes don't need to be complicated or stressful. TurboTax is here to change the game by matching you with a TurboTax expert who can get to work on your return right away. No more waiting for answers. No more wondering if you're missing out on deductions. Whether you've got one form or 20, TurboTax experts give you their taxes their undivided attention and give you real-time updates on their project progress, so you can focus on what really matters. You won't have to lift a finger, but you'll get the peace of mind knowing that your taxes are being handled by the pros. Ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? Head on over to TurboTax.com today and get maxed with your expert who is ready to take your taxes off your plate so you can focus on your day. It's only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates are only on the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at turbotax.com/guarantees. So, Ole Miss wasn't just done whenever they signed Trey Hall. Ole Miss had actually a pretty full end of last week in the transfer portal. We didn't talk about all of them. We talked about some of them. But here are the names that you need to know from last week. The first one we're going to talk about is Trace Bruckler. He's a tight end out of New Mexico. He's 6'3", 244 pounds. He had about 30 catches on the year. He played a lot of inline tight end for Bronco Mendenhall, who kind of likes a mixture of old school football along with spread principles. Trace Bruckler was a weapon for New Mexico. They were primarily a running team. They kind of tried to do the same thing at New Mexico that they did at Virginia with the dual threat, heavy running offense. Bruckler caught some touchdowns. He was very serviceable, but this is another hint to me that Ole Miss is sincerely looking at 12 personnel as a full-time thing next season. When you look at the tight end room that Ole Miss has at the moment, you have Daquan Wright coming back, who had a major star turn in the Gator Bowl. Ole Miss signed Luke Haas as well. Caleb Odom, who's going to be listed as a wide receiver, but can be used as a flex tight end as well. And Trace Bruckler to go with Dylan Hitt, go with the freshman that Ole Miss signed. Ole Miss is going 6 or 7 deep in the tight end room at the moment. And Trace Bruckler gives them the ability to go 12 and even 13 personnel next season. Running back Jordan Simmons out of Akron committed to Ole Miss. He originally signed with Michigan State, spent 2 or 3 years there, went to Akron, and now is going to be, I think, a graduate transfer with 1 year to play 1 year at Ole Miss. Typical running back. After last season with Rashad Amos and those guys, we're not just going to pencil them in as a starter, but he has the opportunity to make some plays and get on the field early. With him and Trey Hall and Kewan Lacey and Logan Diggs potentially healthy with an addition of Shakai Mills-Knight, this running back room has a chance to be very, very healthy for Ole Miss next year. And with Ole Miss bringing in the tight ends, when they're bringing in bigger wide receivers, like Deshaun Stribling has a chance to be the smallest player on the football field for Ole Miss, and he's almost as big as Trey Harris. If you come in and put a Caden Odom in for a Caden Lee. So that's what I'm talking about. He has that chance. Ole Miss can get very big, and with the running backs that they have, they could be quite effective running the football as well. Ole Miss also got a commitment from Traylon Ray, a wide receiver out of West Virginia, 6'3", 180 pounds. He is from originally Tallahassee, Florida. It was an Ole Miss Florida State competition. Ole Miss won that out. Florida State, I think, got brought in Deuce Robinson from USC as the tables turned a little bit. Traylon Ray coming into the wide receiver room could fit as Ole Miss is looking for that wide receiver too position at the moment. Will it be Caleb Cunningham, Traylon Ray? Will it be Caleb Odom on that side of the ball? That wide receiver 2 position is going to be a big position for Ole Miss to find in spring practice, and Ray is going to give that an opportunity. He is somebody that was a little bit of a burner over the course of his career in West Virginia, used them like that as much as they could. By the way, that West Virginia uniform I actually really like. Now, the last commitment that Ole Miss got over the weekend was the offensive lineman Percy Lewis. 6'8", 360 pounds. He is a large human being. He played at Auburn a year ago. He transferred to Mississippi State. He's originally from Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College. And with the Diego Pavia's ruling over that, it is worth taking these flyers on players that have a JUCO history, because you could potentially get a 3-year eligible player when you thought you were recruiting a one and done. So Percy Lewis, if he can get his body in check and all of that, he may be playing interior at Ole Miss. We'll see exactly what John Garrison and Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss has planned for this offensive lineman. I do not think he's going to play tackle. I don't. I think that Jaden Williams, if he can stay healthy, is going to be fine. And I think Diego Pounds, one of those is going to move out to the right tackle spot, because the right tackle position is going to be the most important offensive line position on this team. We are still waiting to see if Julius Bulow is getting a waiver. We'll see if he is available to play. Ole Miss is losing, I think, Jeremy James. The center is heading out as well. And the left guard from Washington, Nate Kalepo, is probably heading out as well. Percy Lewis is playing probably interior, but you have Patrick Kutas, who was the top interior offensive lineman in the portal. I think he still is, if you look at everybody that's happened after that. Delano Townsend, who is a very good player as well. And then players like PJ Wilkins that you're taking flyers on with multiple years of eligibility. Percy Lewis has a chance to get multiple years of eligibility as well. And we'll see what can happen if he can get his body under control. If he can do that, he will be absolutely fine for Ole Miss, and we'll see exactly how it goes. I'm pretty fired up to see that as well. This transfer portal cycle, what's going on? I do think Ole Miss has 2 or 3 more players that they're definitely far down the road on. And we'll see if Ole Miss can land them. And if Ole Miss can land them, this portal class might be more valuable top to bottom than even the class that was last year. There's no Walter Nolan. There's no Princely and Momiellan. Those guys made this class at a different level. But top to bottom, you're looking at picking up a all-conference player of the year special team at kicker. You're looking at potentially landing somebody like Thaddeus Dixon, who has a chance to do a similar thing as Trey Amos, and he has the Diego Pavia thing that you don't know. Is he a one-and-done player, or is he a 3-year player? All of these unanswered questions, as Lane Kiffin seems to be attacking players that have a JUCO history, because it's not a one-and-done type situation. I'm pretty interested to see what happens there. Brandon Cisse, Kiffin went out there and visited Brandon Cisse. Will he end up committing to Ole Miss? Is he the next one? Landon Locke, the quarterback out of Texas, is he the quarterback that Ole Miss brings in to be a third-string guy, turning over the backup quarterback position to A.J. Maddox? A lot of football is going on, and Ole Miss has probably 2 weeks from now to bring a player in. There's still plenty of time for Ole Miss. There are schools in the country that the drop ad date has already passed. So the options for these players has gotten smaller and smaller over the course of January, unless you want to wait until, after the spring semester or after the quarter system. Like at UCLA, I think they're on quarters. So they have a signing period where a player can enroll in like March. So that's what's going on there. But when you look at Ole Miss having the ability to get these players in at the end of the semester, and some really good players left that Ole Miss can grab, this transfer portal class has a chance to be really special for Ole Miss, and we'll see how it goes. Anyway, coming up in our final segment, Ole Miss basketball took down LSU to start SEC play 3-0. But the real challenge kind of begins now. It's got a showdown in Tuscaloosa ahead of top-ranked, top 5 Alabama, and a road trip to face Mississippi State, who just lost to Kentucky ahead. So do not miss what's next for the Rebels. Attending the new 12-team college football playoff game is an unforgettable experience that truly brings fans together. I can still feel the excitement of the past playoff games, and with this updated format, the extra teams in the mix, it's going to be bigger and better than ever. I cannot wait to make new memories. And when it comes to snagging tickets for those games, Game Time has you covered. They have this new feature called Game Time Picks, which makes finding tickets easier than ever. It cuts through the clutter and shows you only the best deals for great seats, saving you time and effort. I recently used Game Time Ticks to get tickets for an upcoming game, and let me tell you, it was so simple. I browsed through some amazing deals and found a super one which offered the best value for the event. One of my favorite parts, I could check out the seat views before I bought my tickets, and the app showed the total price up front. No surprise fees at ticket checkout. So plus, with their on-time delivery and lowest price guarantee, I felt totally confident with my purchase. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So Ole Miss was able to take down the LSU Tigers in the Pavilion on Saturday. That was a big game for Ole Miss, and it was really massive that Ole Miss was able to kind of handle this environment and not slip up against an LSU team that was honestly desperate for a win. You know, looking at this game, the box score of it, Ole Miss, that is the wrong game, I should say. I don't have that, but Ole Miss beat LSU 77-65 and was able to kind of control the second half. Ole Miss was up by 2 at halftime. They had a slow start for the third time in the row in the SEC, but absolutely dominated the second half. The same thing they did against Georgia, the same thing they did against Arkansas. They did that against LSU as well. This is kind of becoming a second half team, and it is following the emergence of Malik Dia. Malik Dia against LSU had 19 points, 7 rebounds, 1 assist. This follows a similar stat line against the Arkansas Razorbacks where he scored 21. And this guy is kind of becoming the alpha dog of this basketball team. He is the guy that you can count on to get you points and kind of be that run stopper. When another team gets going, he is somebody that is going to make a bucket and kind of put that run at an end. And with him rebounding, Ole Miss did not win the rebound battle this time. Ole Miss lost it by 1 time, but it was a competitive rebound battle. And winning rebound battles is going to be so important for Ole Miss basketball this season. If it's closer, if Ole Miss wins the rebound battle, you're not going to beat them. You have to absolutely control the boards to handle Ole Miss. And this team is playing unbelievably physical, and the defensive pressure, this team can absolutely suffocate you from time to time. It's absolutely great. Like the Ole Miss Mississippi State game in Starkville, there's a chance both those teams score less than 60 points. Both of these teams are such good defensive teams. But we'll see with Chris Beard and his positionless basketball happening. You know, Sean Padula had 11 in the game. Dre Davis, 10. Jamin Brakefield had a big game, 16. Jalen Murray scored 10. And I do want to shout out Eduardo Klafke, who did not score in the game, but he was an energy guy. He was an absolute energy guy for Ole Miss in this game. It should be interesting. Tuesday night, Ole Miss faces the Alabama Crimson Tide in Coleman Coliseum in Alabama. Alabama is a top 5-ish level team. They've run some really good teams out of their own arena already. It's going to be tough sledding playing on the road at Alabama. I think everybody needs to be aware of that. I think playing in the hump on Saturday is going to be a big task for Ole Miss basketball as well. This is why starting 3-0 was so important for Ole Miss basketball. I've talked about this season all the time that this is a race to 8 wins. They even talked about John Rothstein put a tweet out and said somebody in the SEC is going to make the NCAA tournament at 7-11, but not everyone. The bubble is probably 7 wins, so it's a race to 8. So Ole Miss needs 5 more wins. They need to find those wins. Ole Miss playing at Alabama is going to be difficult. Ole Miss playing at Mississippi State, that's going to be difficult. Ole Miss catching Auburn and Florida and Tennessee later in the year, that's going to be difficult. Ole Miss needs to figure out how to win games against South Carolina, how to beat Missouri, how to handle the Texas Longhorns. win the home game against Oklahoma. If you can do these things, you're going to be in a good shape to make the NCAA tournament. And if you can get one of these top-ranked wins, because the Pavilion's going to be an absolute zoo, like when Auburn comes into town or when Tennessee comes into town. Those games are going to be a big game for Ole Miss basketball. But winning that, it's a race to 8 wins. If you get to 8, get there as soon as you can and just start putting the icing on the cake after that. You end up 10-8, 11-7. You might find yourself as a 4 seed in the NCAA basketball tournament this year. It's absolutely nuts. And Chris Beard has built a basketball team that's kind of looking like his basketball teams always have. They play really well. They're one of the few basketball teams in the country that has a mid-range game, which is interesting. Most teams like Alabama does not have 3-level scores. They don't, because if you shoot the ball on a long jump shot, a mid-range jump shot, you get in trouble. It's all layups or 3-point shots. If you can guard the 3 and rebound the ball on those long rebounds so they do not get the layups, you have a chance to suffocate Alabama a little bit. But Alabama's a really good team. They shoot the ball really well. They have really good players for you to try and stop, and they just have some assassins on the outside from time to time. You could be going along really well against this Alabama team. You're up 25-24 with 7 minutes to go in the second half. And at the 4-minute mark, at the under 4 timeout, you're down by 12. That's how quickly this Alabama team can take you down. Mississippi State is just a situation where you can have trouble scoring the basketball because they are so good defensively. And offensively, they've gotten a lot better. I saw them play against Kentucky on Saturday night and was impressed with what was going on. Kentucky got out to like a 12-point lead in the second half. State was able to claw that down, playing defense and making some shots. They even had a 6-point trip down the court, by the way. It is absolutely nuts, but they were able to do that. They weren't able to win the game, but they did show enough offensive firepower that it should at least concern people that is facing the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Really, really good basketball team, as are honestly most teams in this league. We'll see exactly how it goes. Anyway, I hope everybody enjoyed the video on Trey Hall today. That was fun to do. He's absolutely an electric running back and probably one that you haven't heard about. We talk about the recent transfer portal commitments that Ole Miss has gotten in, and we talked a little bit about Chris Beard and Ole Miss basketball in segment 3. We should be pretty excited about the direction that team is going. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the #1 Ole Miss podcast. Your support means the world to us. Tuesday night, instead of a live Locked On Ole Miss Live, we're going to be doing an instant overreaction after the Alabama game, seeing exactly how that goes. And then Saturday, we're going to do an instant overreaction as well. That was pretty successful. We'll talk about transfer portal and other stuff that's going on during that, but we're going to start out instantly overreacting, being unbelievably elated or deflated. So thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On SEC Podcast. Host Chris Gordy holds no punches, covering the best conference in college sports. Find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to those podcasts. Hotty toddy, everyone. And remember, analytics is just the old English word meaning bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.